Hello everyone, Jonathan here again. What's this weapon? Well, I'd be very impressed if anyone has worked out what this is. I'd never seen one before till I joined this, or first came across this wonderful collection. It is antique, as you might have guessed, although we have no external hammer or cock or anything like that. It's very thin, although this portion here of the grip does make it functionally thicker than it could be, but it's relatively thin for a period firearm. We are looking here at the mid-19th century, so not bad compactness-wise, form factor-wise. So to put you out of your misery, this is a, as it says on the gun actually, this is a Système Montigny. We're calling it a parlour pistol. Now that right away, well, if you know what it means, it tells you that this is maybe not a military pistol, but we'll come to that at the end. So, for quite a small bore, allegedly 11 millimeters. I might need to double check that because it looks a little smaller than that to me. But they certainly were made in 11 millimeters. 11 millimeters needle fire. So we have this mark, Système Montigny, and there's no maker's mark on the gun. And you don't put instead of your own name the system or the patent that the thing is. That was sort of incongruous. But when I opened up this lever, we actually have a concealed maker's mark, which is kind of unusual. Sometimes things aren't named for whatever reason. This one is named Bastin Frère, the Bastin brothers, another Belgian gun-making company, and the third known maker of this pattern of pistol. So the Montigny family set up in 1827 in Fontaine-l'Évêque in Belgium, a reasonable sized town, and they are there to set up a gasworks to supply gas to houses, factories, that kind of thing. A lot of us tend to think gas lighting is a late 19th century thing, or mid. Well, it's early. So by 1820, I think Paris and London have gas lighting. This is a bit later, or possibly even earlier than that. This is still early though. But 10 years on, there's a patent for a more complicated form of this lift-up breech mechanism. Another 10 years on, and we have this design, which is greatly simplified with just the breech block, the lever, a linkage, the spring, the hammer. Sounds like a lot of parts, but it's simplified and made easier to manufacture, importantly. So that inventor, 1847, October 1847, aged just 23, is Pierre Charles Montigny. This is a whole gun-making family in Fontaine-l'Évêque in Belgium, reasonably sized town in Belgium, certainly at the time. And Pierre Charles has set up a gas works. In 1837, so 10 years later, this family, Pierre Charles in particular, is pivoting to firearms technology. So he comes up with a form of this breech-loading mechanism. Now, you'll see that's quite easy to open. You then hit resistance immediately, but we have this breech block that's partway opened. You might even see a firing pin emerge there. Now, I'll tell you right away, that's broken. Like a lot of needle fire systems, because this is a form of needle fire, a very sharp, pointy steel firing pin is extremely vulnerable to breakage. And this one, the tip, has broken off. But nonetheless, if we then continue to cock this, we'll see this doohickey underneath inside the trigger guard dropping down. That's your hammer. So this is also, so it's needle fire, it's also under hammer, it's also breech loading, and then that is it cocked. So that hammer is fully forward, which means fully back in normal gun language. And you can see the breech there, fixed barrel. Might be a little hard to see. So the way to seal a breech loader, or to try to clearly close it up, is of course some sort of breech block, and we have that one, very small breech block, but it's backed up by a lot of mechanical support when this thing is shut. And you'll notice there's a brass breech face there, out of which the firing pin emerges. Brass, of course, being a very good obturator, a softer metal that sort of molecularly seals the breech. The best way to do that, of course, is a brass cartridge case, or steel for that matter, but brass is a little bit better, certainly for this application. And weirdly enough, so there's This is a take on the needle gun, but the main inspiration for this is probably Samuel Pawley's design from even earlier on. Samuel Pawley has invented a flip-up breech and a form of brass cartridge with a form of primer in the base, in the centre. So foreshadowing what we would get later as the centre fire system. So Montigny is a little bit of a backward step in terms of ammo technology, but in terms of this simple, relatively straightforward to manufacture, not that many parts in here, breech-loading mechanism, it's pretty advanced. And it's an interesting take on the underhammer system. Ergonomically, it's maybe not ideal, because, well, let's close it again. So we have the classic finger spur of an early 19th century firearm, particularly used for target pistols to help control. But the actual lever is back here, so we have to lift this up, and it's already cocked, so no resistance. But when it isn't cocked, there's quite a lot of resistance, as you saw, to compress that spring. So we're having to break our grip and hold the gun some other way in order to actually cock the thing. At which point we have to insert, this is not a magazine pistol, we have to insert a paper cartridge into the breech and close up behind it and latch it shut. Try to do that. Which this one isn't reliably doing, but I'm going to put that down to wear. Now, even if it wasn't sort of clipping shut, you gripping it like this is going to keep it as closed as it needs to be to effect something of a gas seal. It's going to work pretty well. Not as well as it would if it was a cartridge case with a head. So this exact pistol design does appear on that patent drawing. I've struggled to find a quality version to show you, but we'll continue to look and we'll throw it up if we find it. But rest assured, it looks just like this. There are actually 3 different variations on this very outlandish looking all steel gun with the steel grip panels. You will see metal grip panels on modern competition pistols made out of aluminium. I always think they'd be a bit cold to the touch, but people seem to get on well with them. This is an early, coincidence really, but an early version of metal grip panels. They also made available a version with hard rubber grip panels that, well, these are just grip scales, essentially. You can remove them and replace them, albeit there's no one out there making replacements for this, and there wasn't probably then either, except for the Montigny company. So you could get hard rubber versions. Makes the whole pistol look a bit more conventional and therefore less cool. And there's a third variant, not clear if it came significantly after these other 2. I mean, it's kind of the same gun, just with different grips. But this other variant is a completely different shape. Can't show you, don't have one. Very different shape, but all steel, and shrunk right down to like subcompact, what we'd now call subcompact size. Not much more to say about the gun itself. It does have this weird swivel here for some sort of a strap. Marchand makes no comment on this. I'm actually not sure what this is. Feel free to speculate wildly in the comments. I won't. Decoration overall, I think even on the patent drawing, so we have this classically, or fairly classically, Belgian foliate engraving. We've seen many times on the channel before. Both sides on the grip scales, both sides on the sides, and on the top of the action as well, and even either side of the Système Montigny mark on the grip. Oh, and trigger guard and front strap as well. So not quite overall, but extensive, nice bits of engraving on there, as was the style of the time. The sights are not bad for the 1840s, 50s. They are not that different from something like an early Browning design pistol. Very low profile and relatively hard to quickly acquire, but that was, well, not even standard yet on pistols of the era, so very good for the time. It's relatively heavy for its size. It's sort of about a kilo in weight. Balances pretty well, so not really a problem. But if you're carrying this around, trying to use it for self-defense or something, it wouldn't be ideal. But this is not for self-defense. Now, so this is a rifle barrel. As mentioned, needle fire, shaped as essentially a form of target pistol, and it is a parlour pistol. So this is for indoor target shooting. So a low power cartridge of this nature. 11mm seems to be the typical caliber. This one's actually a little smaller than that. It's a bit quieter indoors. Believe it or not, people were shooting indoors in their literal parlours from about the mid-19th century to the early 20th century, perhaps. Before, I guess, air guns came back into fashion and they were used a bit in that way as well. But typically, we mostly moved outdoors for our shooting or to a dedicated indoor shooting range. But at this time, it was all the rage. So this is definitively a parlour pistol, not a fighting pistol, which is just as well, because it is a bit heavy, it is a bit unwieldy, it is only single shot, and most importantly, it's a very low velocity round. So Pierre Charles Montigny dies in 1861. Some sources say 71, but I'm going with 61. And his son, Francois Camille, dies only 3 years after that, unfortunately. Both these guys are making this type. That's why those members of the family are particularly important. So Pierre Charles, Francois Camille, the Montigny father and son, who are the sort of originators of this, and then the Bastin brothers, who clearly made this example, and at least one other that we know of, no doubt many more than that. There's also, however, Joseph Montigny and another brother as well, and they seem to carry on the PC Montigny et Filles company until about 1860, making firearms, we think. And Joseph Montigny is involved in the Montigny mitrailleuse, this beehive breech block pseudo machine gun that becomes very important in the 1860s. But the company themselves, the family themselves, seem to pivot to making nails and hardware in the 1860s at some point. And the last sighting is 1876, I believe, in a sort of trade directory. But there are no other mentions, and they sort of fall off. At least they fall off the firearms radar for sure, and I don't know how long the company survives. Now, pleasingly, the former shop, so not the factory, but their sort of shop front in Galerie de la Reine in Brussels, still exists, but it's not a gun shop. Don't get too excited. It is, in fact, now a restaurant. So you can go and have a nice meal in that restaurant and be in the shop front for the quite famous Belgian gun-making family, the Montignys. Thanks for watching, guys. We do appreciate it. As ever, we do have actual museums that you can come and visit. Check out our website, recently refreshed, and our social media outlets, the one that used to be called Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can actually play along, if you don't know already, with What's This Weapon by guessing what it is that we're going to be featuring the next week. Also, if you do visit our museums, check out, well, until the end of June at least, you can check out the exhibition Reloaded with a lot of decorated, cool and interesting firearms in there. And also, online, as well as our own channel, we are part of something called History of Weapons and War, which is an app that you can sign up to. You'll get our content ad-free. Same content from our side of things, but you also will get a load of, I think there are 8 of us in total involved there, including Forgotten Weapons and various others that you'll definitely want to check out if you like the sort of thing we do here. But whatever you do, we'll see you again here next week.